gang, what's going on? Hope everybody out there is having a good day, and welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling. I really appreciate everybody making some time to watch the video. So today, going to ruffle some feathers and get some sensitive types all mad at me again, because we're going to go into the continuing saga of the braid to fluorocarbon controversy, braid to fluorocarbon knot deal, which you guys know that I don't think is necessary to use. One of the reasons I wanted to do this video is, for some reason, I've had a bunch of people asking about it lately, and I've done some videos on this in the past. I mean, I've done a couple of videos talking about it, and definitely got a lot of very colorful opinions from some people that were pro braid to fluorocarbon. So I'm going to go over it once more for the people that have joined the channel since then, sort of give you guys my stance on it, why you do not ever need to use braid to fluorocarbon, you know. Okay, let's get into this, guys. This is something that's been fairly recent. It's something that's really sort of came into its own over the past 10 years or so, where specifically, not just spinning. I mean, people do it on bait casters a lot too, but primarily going with a braided line, main line, attached to a fluorocarbon or monofilament leader. It's sort of like it's been ingrained in the thought of a lot of bass anglers, especially the people just starting out, thinking that's just what they have to do because they see the pros doing it out there. Guys, I'm here to offer a counter to that, because I do not agree that it's necessary whatsoever. And so I'm going to talk about it here and, you know, make my point behind that. First of all, one of my beliefs in bass fishing is that sort of one of my base foundational beliefs in fishing that I found to be true is that, number one, you have to get the fish to bite before you worry about getting the fish in. If you don't get the fish to bite, you're never going to get it in. So given that particular set of realities, my number one focus, and anyone's number one main focus, should be getting the fish to hit, getting that fish to actually bite your lure, and then you can worry about what happens after it bites your lure. Right off the bat, and there's nobody that can disagree with this, using braid to fluorocarbon setup is not going to get you any more bites. Not a zero. You're not going to get any benefit from it as far as getting more bites. In fact, what it's going to do is probably going to cost you some bites, because let's take, for example, right now, the big deal now is everybody using the yellow main line attached to their fluorocarbon. Now, what happens if you're in a clear water environment? Say you make a long cast out there, and say you've got a 15-foot leader, 10 or 15 feet leader, which is, you know, most people use about a 5 to 10 foot leader. So let's just say you got a 15-foot leader and you make a, you know, 50, 60, 70-foot cast with that, and you're in a clear water environment. That yellow line going down into the water for 15 or 20 feet, if you don't think the bass can see that, you're in denial of reality. Bass can sense, and they can locate a minnow swimming in pitch black darkness, and you don't think they can see a piece of yellow rope going down into the water, you know, close to where they're at. Now, here's the thing about that. It's like, does that have any impact on the fish biting that lure? I don't see how it cannot. I mean, a lot of people argue, it's like, oh, that doesn't matter. Well, I think it probably does. You know, it's just, to me, it's a negative strike deterrent. That's the number one thing behind it. Number two, the reason you don't want to use it is the fact that you've got two weak links. You've got the braid to fluorocarbon knot that you have to tie, which is a pain in the butt. If you guys, and guys, one thing you have to realize, I experimented with this for years. I'm not just talking about it without using it. I used braid to fluorocarbon extensively for a couple years. And after using it extensively, I came to the determination that the disadvantages of it outweigh the advantages, so I went back to straight fluorocarbon. But one of the things about it is the best knot for braid fluorocarbon is an FG knot, which is a pain in the butt to tie. And on top of that, try tying an FG knot if you're in 20-mile-an-hour winds and your boat's rocking and you're 50 years old and you have to use reading glasses to tie it. It's a pain in the butt. And then you got to worry about tying your main line. What happens in this scenario is, since it's such a pain in the butt to tie two different knots, a lot of times people don't retie their leader material enough, so it gets frayed. If you're fishing a shaky head or a Ned rig or something like that, dragging a bait along the bottom, you're going to get line frays pretty common. it's common for me. Sometimes I'll retie 30, 40 times a day with 6 and 8 pound test line. You gonna tell me you're gonna retie 30 or 40 times with two different, braid to fluorocarbon knot and your main knot? It's not gonna happen. So right off the bat, it discourages you from retying as much. Second from that, the braid to fluorocarbon knot, I don't care what anybody says, it can fail. 4 years ago, I would have won the US Open at Lake Mead had my partner's braid to fluorocarbon knot not failed twice in one day. He was an excellent angler. He knew how to tie knots very well, knew how to tie the FG knot. He broke off 2 big fish at the braid to fluorocarbon knot, cost me winning the US Open that year. So it does happen with that. So from that standpoint, it's just inefficient as far as terms of retying. The other thing about that is I think it makes you too sensitive. It creates too much sensitivity. And in my opinion, you don't ever want to get in a hurry to set the hook. I mean, if you get a good fish to hit, now there are exceptions. I've seen videos where you've seen a 5 or 6 pound bass inhale a crankbait and spit it out. But most of the time, if you're fishing, any type of slow lure, which is usually associated with braid to fluorocarbon, I don't want to set the hook immediately. I want to be able to let that fish move a little bit with it, so I don't need that sensitivity that the braid offers. Another thing with it is I want some stretch in my line. If you go to braid to fluorocarbon, you've reduced your stretch by 50% over just using straight fluorocarbon line. And a lot of times I see guys trying to fish jerk baits and crankbaits and everything with the braid to fluorocarbon. And I'll get some guys once in a while, they'll show up to some of my on the water lessons with braid to fluorocarbon on their spinning outfit, and we're going to be jerkbait fishing. And I'll just tell them right off the bat, I said, dude, you're wasting your time. I said, you're not going to catch crap on a braid to fluorocarbon with a jerkbait. And if you do, you're going to lose most of the fish you catch on it. So we'll usually take it off and put straight fluorocarbon on in the boat with him. So it's going to cause you to set the hook too quick with that. So from that standpoint, guys, don't get sucked into thinking you need to use braid to fluorocarbon, because you don't. And then there's guys going to say, Randy, you're full of crap, because look at all those Elite Series guys that such and such, he caught 100 pounds of smallmouth at the St. Lawrence River using braid to fluorocarbon. That didn't get him any more bites by doing that, and he probably would have caught 105 pounds if he was using straight fluorocarbon. He'd probably got some more of those big old smallmouth to bite that didn't get spooked off on the line. That is my theory behind it. Braid to fluorocarbon, guys, zero benefit to getting you more fish to get to bite your lure. Zero to benefit. And you simply don't need it. I think there's way more disadvantages to it. And I think one of the problems we got into is that people, they buy into pop culture a little bit, and they see people using it, they hear people using it, and they think they need to use it, and they don't experiment. I'll say this to you guys out there that have grown up with using braid to fluorocarbon. Have you spent a year or two using nothing but straight fluorocarbon, and then using braid to fluorocarbon, and then compared the advantages and disadvantages over a 2-year experimentation period? If you haven't done that, then you owe it to yourself to try it like I did, and I think you'll make the determination. The only advantage of using braid to fluorocarbon, the only advantage is it allows you to make a longer cast. The braid, on a smaller braid, you can make a longer cast. You can accomplish the same thing by going to a lighter pound test on straight fluorocarbon, but that's the only advantage. So you're talking about an additional maybe 10% distance is added by going to braid to fluorocarbon. That's the only advantage. So I will gladly take all the advantages of straight fluorocarbon and sacrifice my 10 foot of casting distance, because most of the time I'm not interested in casting across a football field, when I'm using spinning tackle on a shaky head and a Ned rig. That's just not my priority. So the point of the matter, guys, is don't get sucked into feeling you have to use braid to fluorocarbon. You don't have to do it. You can use straight fluorocarbon and you'll just be fine. It'll get you more bites than you're getting with braid to fluorocarbon. You're going to have less weak knots. You're going to have, fewer break-offs because of the frays from not retying. It's just a better system to go to straight fluorocarbon. So anyway, that's my opinion on it. Everybody's got, things they like to do. But, I'm just sharing with you guys what works for me. I'm not here to ruin anybody's day, because this, I'm sure it does, because I get notes when I talk about this all the time. I get nasty comments all the time. So if you want to use Braid to fluorocarbon and reduce the number of bites you get from doing that, feel free about it. If you think that's the way to go. But I'll stick to being a little bit more stealthy and using straight fluoro. All on my spinning tackle, I'm using anywhere between 6 to 10 pound tests, Seaguar, Vizex all the time. It's never failed me. Gets the fish in the boat, gets a lot of bites, and it's just a much more better system. So anyway, guys, just a few thoughts. Hope you're all doing good. We'll talk later.